Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered if we can truly trust those buzzing autonomous drones that are starting to show up everywhere, especially in places like warehouses? Well, this new study dives deep into exactly that. So imagine walking into a warehouse and seeing drones flying around doing tasks all by themselves. It sounds cool, right? These drones are popping up in places like warehouses because they can help make things faster and more flexible. They can go places humans can't easily reach and work without needing fixed paths. This is super useful for keeping warehouse operations moving smoothly. But here is the tricky part. These drones often share the same physical space with human workers. This means direct interaction is happening, and that's where things get complex. Think about it. A robot on the floor might give you some hints about where it is going, but a drone can fly anywhere above you, around you, at different speeds. It is way harder to guess what it is going to do next. This unpredictability is a big deal in places where people and machines work together. It can make people feel unsafe, make coordination tough, and make us hesitant to even be around these machines. Plus, drones can be noisy, create air movement, and their cameras might make us feel like we're being watched, raising privacy concerns. All these things mess with how we feel and interact with them. Now, all of this brings us to the big question of trust. Trust is super important when it comes to using any kind of automated technology. It's basically our belief that a machine will help us reach our goals, especially when there is some uncertainty. But here is the catch. Just having more trust isn't always better. We need the right amount of trust, which means our trust should match the machine's actual abilities. If we trust it too little, we might not use it when it could be helpful. If we trust it too much, we might rely on it for things it can't actually handle, and that can be dangerous. So the goal is always calibrated trust, trusting it just the right amount. So how do we get this calibrated trust? A key element is something called a mental model. Think of a mental model as our internal understanding of how something works. For a drone, it's our idea of what it can do, what its limits are, and how it's likely to behave. It's like having a mental map of the drone's brain. If our mental model is accurate, we can predict its behavior and our trust will be well placed. If it's wrong, we might end up over or under trusting it. And the cool thing is these mental models aren't fixed. They change and grow as we interact with the technology. Even a short experience can tweak our mental model. What's also interesting is that we can have different kinds of trust. Terrace situational trust, which is how much we trust a specific drone we're interacting with right now. Then Terrace generalized trust, which is our overall feeling about drones as a technology. These two aren't always the same. You might trust the drone you're using today, but still be wary of other drones you haven't met. This is especially true when we're just starting to use a new type of technology. Those first few interactions can really shape how we feel about the whole category of technology. Now, trust is crucial, but it doesn't always directly lead to us using a technology or behaving in a certain way. That's why the researchers also looked at things like our intention to use drones in the future and actual behavior, like how close we feel comfortable being to a drone. They also explored how we describe drones in our minds, like do we think of them as tools or as something more like a teammate? So, with all that in mind, these researchers wanted to see how a brief interaction with an autonomous drone in a warehouse setting would affect people's mental models, their trust, their intention to use drones, and how they mentally represent these machines. Their main question was, does interacting with a drone change how we understand it? And how does that change influence our trust? They had a couple of main ideas. First, they thought that interacting with the drone would make people's mental models more accurate. And second, they hypothesized that more accurate mental models would lead to higher trust. They also wanted to explore if people would want to use drones more, how they'd behave around them, and what words they'd use to describe them. To figure this out, they set up a realistic mock warehouse. They had 19 people, mostly university students who didn't have much prior experience with drones, interact with an autonomous drone for about 15 minutes. They measured people's understanding, trust, and intention to use drones before the interaction. During, right after, and then again a few weeks later. They used special equipment to track movement and record what people said. The whole setup was pretty cool. Participants were like new employees at a fake logistics company, and the drone was part of their onboarding. They had to follow the drone around on a tour, and the drone did different things like guiding them, avoiding obstacles, or even disappearing for a bit. Participants were asked about their expectations and their trust at different points. They also did a task where they figured out their preferred comfortable distance from the drone called comfort proximity. They used different questionnaires to measure things like generalized trust in drones, and a specific scale to check how accurate mental models were for the drone they interacted with. They also asked people to describe drones using adjectives. And to measure behavior, they looked at that comfort proximity distance. Okay, so what did they find? This is where it gets really interesting. Remember that first hypothesis, that interaction would improve mental models? Well, it was a big success. Their results showed that people's mental model accuracy increased significantly after they interacted with the drone. And that improvement stuck around, staying higher even a few weeks later. So yes, even a short time with the drone made people understand it better. Interestingly, when they looked at trust in the specific drone they were interacting with, what they called situational, trust it stayed pretty high and didn't change much during the interaction. People seemed to already trust the drone, and that trust level remained stable. But when they looked at generalized trust, how people felt about drones as a whole, they saw some changes. Some aspects of generalized trust, like believing drones are reliable, sincere, and ethical, actually increased after the interaction and stayed higher. This suggests that interacting with one drone can actually make people feel a bit better about drones in general. Now, about that second hypothesis linking mental model accuracy to trust. This was a bit more complex. They didn't find a direct, immediate link between how accurate someone's mental model was right after the interaction and how much they trusted drones in general right then. However, when they looked at things over a longer period using what are called cross-liked correlations, they found something important. People who had more accurate mental models after the interaction tended to show higher generalized trust a few weeks later. This is a really key insight. It suggests that the link between understanding a drone better and trusting drones more isn't instant. It seems like our brains need a little time to process that new understanding and let it influence our broader feelings about the technology. This gives us a clue about how trust actually develops. What about wanting to use drones more? Yep, that went up too. People's intention to use drone technology increased after the interaction and stayed elevated later on. This makes sense. When you understand something better and it works reliably, you're more likely to be open to using it. But here is the contrasting finding. Remember that comfortable distance thing, how close people felt okay being to the drone. That didn't really change much after their interaction. So while people might say they want to use drones more and understand them better, their actual physical comfort zone around a specific drone didn't shift with just one short experience. Finally, the descriptions. When asked to describe drones, people overwhelmingly used technical and functional words like automatic or flying. This was true before, during, and after the interaction, while there was a slight bump in more social or emotional words right after the interaction. The main takeaway is that people still see drones primarily as tools, not as social beings. This is actually a good thing because it means their trust is probably built on understanding the drone's function, not on mistakenly thinking it's a person. So, what does all of this mean? The researchers suggest that even a short interaction with an autonomous drone can boost our understanding or mental model accuracy. This improved understanding then seems to influence our more general feelings towards drones over time. It's like our brains build a theory of the artificial mind, a way to figure out how these non-human things work. This theory helps us better predict their actions and align our trust with their actual capabilities. The fact that the link between better understanding and increased trust took time is super important. It tells us trust isn't just about a single event. It's a process that involves our brains learning and integrating new information. This could be a key piece in how we develop calibrate trust, making sure we trust machines appropriately, not too much and not too little. The study also highlights that trust in a specific drone situational trust. And trust in drones as a category generalized trust behaved differently. Situational trust stayed high and stable, while generalized trust increased in some areas. This means our experiences with individual systems can shape our broader views on technology, and this often takes time. It's also worth noting that while people became more willing to use drone technology, their actual comfort zone around the drone didn't change. This means that while a single experience can boost our positive outlook, changing actual behavior, especially something as fundamental as physical comfort, might take more than just one encounter. The finding that people still describe drones mainly in technical terms is also a relief. It suggests that we are developing a more accurate understanding of drones as sophisticated tools rather than falsely believing they have human-like qualities, which could lead to misplaced trust. From a scientific standpoint, this research offers a new way to look at how trust develops with autonomous systems. It proposes that improving our mental models, our understanding of how these systems work, is a crucial step, and it suggests this understanding influences our broader trust in a delayed but meaningful way. This idea of a theory of the artificial mind helps explain how we make sense of these intelligent machines. What does this mean for real life, especially in places like warehouses? It suggests that giving people a chance to interact with these drones, even for a short while, can be really beneficial. It helps them build accurate mental models and become more comfortable with the technology. Companies introducing drones should definitely include hands-on experience in their training. However, they shouldn't expect one brief encounter to completely change ingrained behaviors. Ongoing training and clear guidelines are still essential for safe operation. Now, like all studies, this one has its limits. The group of people they studied was quite small and mostly university students. So the findings might not apply to everyone or every real-world work situation. Also, the drone they used was working perfectly. And in the real world, things sometimes go wrong. We need more research to see how our understanding and trust develop when systems have flaws. And while the adjective descriptions were useful, future studies could explore people's mental models in even more detail using interviews. In conclusion, this study shows that interacting with autonomous drones, even briefly, can significantly improve how we understand them. This improved understanding, in turn, seems to lay the groundwork for changes in our broader trust and willingness to use drone technology, often with a short delay. It's not about seeing drones as human-like, it's about developing a solid, functional understanding, a theory of the artificial mind, which is key for calibrated trust and effective collaboration between humans and these smart machines in our workplaces and beyond. It is amazing how much we can learn about our own minds by watching how we interact with new technology. This research gives us some great insights into that process. What do you think about this study? Does it change how you see autonomous drones? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this dive into the human mind and technology, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. See you next time.